co-chair with me. Today, we are going to start with, I would want to make a correction. The first lead presenter is Miss Agnes Shirabo, not Irene. Madam, about that. You're most welcome, take your seat. She will be the lead presenter. She's Executive Director of Food Rights Alliance. She's a human rights advocate. She has a wide experience in food and agriculture policy issues of over 15, 20 years. Madam Agnes, you're most welcome. Her co-discussants are Leven. Leven, please take your seat. There's William Amanya. William Amanya, please take your seat. Eria Viaranga, please take your seat. And Dr. Singe Stanley. You are most welcome. As you're aware, we're trying to manage time. What we have decided with the Secretariat is that the lead discussant will go through his or her presentation, and the one in charge of the slides will just be going through. So the lead presenter will go through the discussion as we just either we observe or listen to what they are presenting. She has 10 minutes, and the discussants have 4. So let's see how we shall go about this. So you're most welcome to listen to our presenters. So, Madam Agnes, the floor is yours.
No, but I've done. Hello. Hey. Good morning. I'm not going to introduce myself again. That second mic should be switched off. Okay. To introduce myself once again, but on behalf of my own organization, Food Rights Alliance, a civil society organization that is driven by a vision of living in a world free from hunger and malnutrition, and that strives to promote sustainable access and consumption of safe, healthy, and nutritious diets for all. I bring you congratulatory pleasantries to Jesse. Congratulations. Happy and great anniversary of 30 years. Oh, somebody was saying happy birthday for the 30 years. Being the first speaker this morning, I thought that I needed to underscore that at 30 years, if you're a man, you're not expected at 30 years to be staying at your parents' home. You're expected to have started your own family. You're expected to be giving back to your family and to your clan and to your community. And to give back to your clan grandchildren. I never wanted to talk about that because that is in the power of God. But the others are in the power of you to do. So 30 years of existence, you're taking up yet another high step. I don't know about the Toro culture, but I think you've started sitting closer to the elders. So congratulations. to speak about a very big topic as you'd look at your program. But this morning, I agreed that allow me to speak and not, but the discussants have my presentation because we do not have time. And if I keep running through my slides, I would be required to speak to every slide, and my presentation will end at 1. So in the next 7 minutes, because I was given 10 minutes, let me speak to this topic of agricultural policies and how they are interacting with our food systems, and the topic of our discussion today, which is climate change. Yesterday, we consumed a lot of knowledge and information regarding the concept of climate change. And I'm not going to speak to it because I do not want to cause constipation. We had a lot of consumption, and I do believe our bodies and minds are still digesting. Now what I'm adding to that menu is the issue of policy, and in this case, the agricultural policies in Uganda. I'm also adding to that menu, according to the instructions I got, the aspects of food sovereignty, but also the issues of food system. Food sovereignty and food systems. Whoever is managing, if you could click and along. Again, 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 again. When we talk about food sovereignty, we are basically only talking about that. The power of the people within, over, with, to have control of their food system, to decide on what they want to produce and to decide on what they want to eat. That power and the efforts through policy and through patronage to harmonize and make our food system homogeneous, that the people of Toro eat like the people of Bukit, eat like the people of Sweden, eat like the people of South Africa, eat like the people of Acholi, is partly contributing to the issues that we were discussing yesterday. Having a homogeneous food system, the impact to climate change are known because by design, somebody is designing the inputs and the food system as a one size that fits all. And yet, much as we are all human beings, but given our ecological regions, our cultural backgrounds, our heritage, define who we are and define how we eat and defines how we interact with the environment around us. But somebody somewhere eyeing to control the food system wants to come up with a design of a food system that fits us all, and yet we are not homogeneous when it comes to food. So when you hear about the issues of food sovereignty, it is about those actions and the hands and the people at the center of their food system. And I tell people, not so many weeks ago, I interacted with a media personality who told me, can you imagine the farmers are still producing as they were producing, and yet we are in climate change? I told him, because you're here in the studio, you don't know what is happening. The farmers, they adopt and adapt within their own ecological areas and locations where they are. So when we are advocating for food sovereignty, let the people feed the way they feed within their ecological, be in control of their food system, be in control and be able, because they know they want to coexist, and if nature doesn't behave, they are not going to exist. But some person is imposing a food system to everybody, and in many cases, this food system is becoming destructive. And I think you had the conversations well yesterday. So for me, when I come to Toro, and I don't eat Finenda, is that the right? Firinda. Then I've not been to Toro. I have not been here. I have not eaten Obutuzi. And I'm very scared. Yeah? Then, because that is what makes me feel I am in Toro. And if you look at some of those foods, thanks to KRC, I've ever sat on Orugali here, and you really feel I'm in Toro. And when you look at those foods, you look at nature, you look at sustainability, you look at heritage, you look at identity, you look at humanity. I would be mad if I go to Bugishu and I'm asking them for Firinda. I'll ask for Malewa, because that is what defines them. I don't always want to be behind people on a queue for food, because I ask questions. How can I be in Toro and I'm served spaghetti? This is not Italy. No, this is Toro. And so when the people come into Toro, they should have that feel of the heritage, because it is deeply rooted in our culture, in our indigenous society, but it is also deeply rooted in our nature. And this homogeneous food system is the one that has killed all the termites and the important insects, and I've not eaten Obutuzi for all the days I've spent in Toro. Press, my minutes are running out before I talk about policy. When we talk about food system, this is a new concept. Everybody is talking about it, but there is no science in it. There is nothing supernatural in it. It is about talking about the actors, the police, the people, the events, the processes, and all of the actions that having breakfast today, it wasn't a matter of serving it from a saucepan. There are so many actors, there are so many hands that have touched that what? That food. Going back to what I told you, if we harmonize the food system, some of the foods are increasing the miles they are walking. And that one alone destroys nature. You get? Because I have to eat spaghetti, I don't know how many miles it has moved. I'm pretty sure it is not manufactured somewhere in Kamwenji. Eh? It has moved miles, all in Kabondeire. It has moved miles. So the two concepts, food sovereignty and the food systems, have to be looked at as two concepts that contribute to each other. Because the aim is, can we have sustainable consumption of safe, healthy, and nutritious diets? The second thing I want to talk about, and I put this microphone down before I talk about policies, is what they talked about yesterday. I know why I was invited to come here and talk about policies. because that is what defines me. These are the fronts that I have been on up to today. Can we have the right policies? Can we have the supportive policies that create an enabling environment for us to have sustainable food system, that create an enabling environment for the people to be in control of their food system? Can we create an enabling environment that makes a food system that is inclusive, that people live with dignity? But there are three realities that we, the policy advocates, and even when we make policy recommendations here, we have to be cognizant about. Three realities, and some of these realities we have talked about yesterday. One of the realities, there is a graph in here, is the issue of population explosion. Every time you see a person, for us in food, we only see the mouth and the stomach. So when the chair in the morning was saying, we were 220 people here yesterday, for me what came to my mind, those were 220 plates of food served. So every mouth means food. But people have never been a problem. The population is not the problem. The problem is how we want to respond on how to feed that population. The population is not a problem, but it is only a problem if it is a population that does not contribute to making food available, and they do not have the capacity to pay for the food. So the population becomes the burden to the food system. So when we go before the policy makers, they say, Agnes, we've heard you, but will food sovereignty feed this hungry population? So we need to prepare a response for that. And that response, we need the likes of Dr. Muhumza, Professor Taylor, and Dr. My chair, and others, to research and produce context-specific evidences. Context-specific evidences. We should not talk about evidence of the Dutch, the Denmark. No. We want to produce thorough, best evidence. And I'm happy you invited as many researchers in this space as possible. And because Toro, this is the first climate change summit I'm attending that is at the local level here in Uganda. That's another congratulations to Jesse. So Toro, we have decided to lead. Let us lead. And at least we come up with evidence for our Ugandan policymakers that actually these practices work, and we are not going to tell stories. Those guys, our colleagues in policy, they want to speak to figures. We invested so much, we got so much, the return on investment is so much. The other reality that is related to what I have talked about is the hunger. Is the hunger. And again, Toro, you have the key. Please help this country and unlock that potential. Because Toro, you're still known as a region of food diversity. You have a lot of food of diversity. But the unfortunate bit that you also top malnutrition. And the other day I was at the district, and the district health officer told me that 60% of every grave now you find in Karoli is associated to NCDs, non-communicable diseases. So meaning that Toro, we are shouldering a double burden. The haves are dying of NCDs. The have-nots are dying of malnutrition. But the positive issue is that we still have a rich food system. You get? So we need to unlock that potential by using our food system empirically, and then we go before the policy makers and they say, you see, if we keep a rich food system like Toro has done, hunger and malnutrition is history. Because globally, people are saying to deal with malnutrition, let us put rice in banana. Let us put pepper in what? Let us put what in what? And yet, in the names of biofortification. So, Toro, you're still the Garden of Eden for Uganda. Please, please, let us address the few issues that are causing us the double burden of malnutrition, such that we go and engage. Please look at Toro with the rich food diversity. There is no hunger, there is no malnutrition. So for now, let us not harmonize our food system. Let us promote food diversity like it is in Toro. Because the challenge they have on the table is that people are malnourished and they are hungry, and therefore can they all produce maize, fill their stomach, and we call it a day. And in any case, let us fortify the maize. Those are realities. If we do not have answers to those, I speak to the last thing, the policy. I'm here to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that Uganda is a rich policy country.
2 minutes.
And I have concluded. Uganda is a rich policy country. We have a multitude of policies. They are in this presentation, you will get them. But the challenge we are dealing with are the contradictions, meaning that our policymakers, their souls are willing, but their bodies are weak. And they end up making a dual policy. Yeah? Serving food sovereignty and agroecology, and serving industrial agriculture this side. So their bodies are willing, but their hands are tied, because they are dealing with the realities and they are not having evidences. So colleagues, as we are gathered here, I wish to inform you that the policies we have, you're going to have these slides. I have been able to pick out some provisions that really give us an opportunity to engage. But if we want to turn around the policy terrain, we need to work on the evidences that food sovereignty, context specific, food sovereignty, nature positive production systems like agroecology that I subscribe to can feed the people and feed them sustainably. Because at Food Rights Alliance we believe a world, a Toro, a Uganda free from hunger and malnutrition is possible for God and my country.
Thank you, Agnes. Another round of applause for Agnes, please. Thanks for raising our awareness on sovereignty issues. Yeah, you leave it.
I have sanitized. Whoever wishes to use it again.
Thank you once again. We shall have discussions after all the presenters and the discussants have presented. So we can have, Livin, please, you can make your remarks. Then that order.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice presentation. I think we've already heard when we looked at a panel discussion. It's today is clearly the focus on agriculture. I think yesterday we talked a lot about water, focusing on agriculture, the link with climate change, food sovereignty, what's the role of ecological farming, indigenous species. I think first of all, when we talk about agriculture and climate change, in that reflection you often see agriculture is a part of the problem when it comes to climate change. I think we also need to make sure that we open our mindset that agriculture is also a potential part of the solution. When we look at agriculture and the soil we are using, our soil is an ecosystem, or could be an ecosystem, that is capable of sequestrating carbon. We heard about trees are sequestering carbon, but also the soil in its biodiversity as an ecosystem is capable of sequestering carbon. Of course, when you're going to use your soil just as a simple substrate for your plants, you're going to kill the whole soil, you put on your chemical fertilizers, you're going to be a contributor to greenhouse gases. Your production might, on the short term, increase a bit, but that system of agriculture is actually a contributor to greenhouse gases. So I think, first of all, I want to bring it to our mind that agriculture is also part of the solution. Sustainable agriculture using organic solutions. Now, when it comes to policies, I think it's very interesting to know that Uganda is a net exporter of agricultural products. However, if you look at what we are producing and exporting, we are talking about, if I reflect on Toro region, we are talking about the tea, we are talking about the coffee, we are talking about the cocoa. So we have a lot of cash crops which have been promoted through policies, through government programs, which are now being grown in this fertile region, which are mainly bringing dollars back, but they are not bringing nutrition, or they're adding on to the problem of stunting of our children. You go around and you see these trucks coming from Buju. They always have those nice slogans on the back. You'll see those trucks, grow more cocoa. How can you come from Buju knowing that the malnutrition level is higher than Karamoja? And then your slogan is, grow more cocoa. I'm always tempted to go with my marker. Grow more nutritious food, grow more diversity. And I think when we talk about climate change, there is one problem that is even bigger, even more emerging, that we tend to neglect. It is the biodiversity collapse. It is the diversity on the farm. It is the diversity in our ecosystems. You see, if we would look today at all the mammals that we have on this planet Earth, and you would put them together on one scale, just to give you an idea of where we have reached with the biodiversity, if you would put all the mammals, the elephants, the polar bears, the squirrels, the rats, the humans, our chicken, then 96% of that weight would be humans and the animals they produce for their own consumption. So we've pushed back the biodiversity to a very small portion, meaning that our ecosystems are collapsing, meaning that the resilience, the ecosystems who are capable of adapting for climate change, who are capable of sequestering carbon, we have been neglecting them. And again, I bring it back to my first point, a farm or a soil can be an ecosystem that can contribute to the solution. I don't know, I think I'm also reaching my time. I have a lot to say on these issues, but I would propose I pass the microphone to my colleague, William. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver, and Agnes for the presentation. My submission really is on the policy in terms of strengthening the sustainable food systems. We have to believe that policies are very important to strengthen the sustainable food systems. Kirabo also highlighted about the National Organic Agriculture Policy, which is a very important policy when it comes to strengthening food systems here in Uganda. Of course, we know the challenges of implementation, but it's a policy that actually provides a policy framework to really strengthen the food system. And it's an opportunity that this policy also provides a framework for agroecology, and we know agroecology has power to strengthen the food systems here in Uganda. So that's very important note that actually mentioned in the Agnes presentation. But also, in regards to strengthening the food systems, we see agroecology has the practical solutions to really address this. And when you talk about the food sovereignty, that actually puts people at the center in terms of deciding which means of production they want to use, and also what kind of food they want to produce, which is a very important aspect in agroecology, because we all know that within agroecology, we actually embrace the whole family involvement in terms of farming aspects, so which is an opportunity for us, especially in the region, that are working towards promoting agroecology. The other note about the food sovereignty, she talked about the indigenous knowledge, because it's very important when it comes to strengthening the food systems. And we know very well that within agroecology, it embraces the indigenous knowledge, because we know if this indigenous knowledge and scientific knowledge is actually integrated, it can be a very important aspect in terms of strengthening the food systems. She talked about the economic and environmental aspects, which we see very well within agroecology, because it looks at balancing the three aspects, where we have the social, economic, and environment. And we know those are the most challenging factors when it comes to farming. But within agroecology, if our farmers are able to really have the economic benefits from their farming activities, they are able to conserve the environment around their farming systems, conserving the biodiversity and all that, but also taking aspect of the social aspect, then that would be actually one way of how we can actually strengthen our food systems. As I conclude, she also talked about increasing population, which has actually created a burden in terms of food systems, because there is a lot of pressure on food and which kind of food to produce. And to me, this calls for integrated approaches on farm. And to me, I would say adoption of integrated farm planning approaches that looks at empowering the farmer, looking at putting in place sustainable ways of producing is actually a solution to actually address that kind of challenge. But also within the integrated approaches, we see farmers can actually plan and use their farms sustainably. So this could actually be some of the practical aspects that we can think of as a region locally here to address some of these challenges. Lastly, she talked about the food diversity, which is very important in terms of addressing issues of malnutrition. And as you know very well, within agroecology, this can actually be a way to go. To me, in my own perspective, this would be the way to go to actually look at this, because we know within the agroecological farming systems, we embrace diversity, where there is integration of crops and also livestock. And this one calls for efforts to try to promote some of these approaches that looks at integration on the farm, and also how our farming communities or farming households can actually maximally utilize and sustainably utilize the small spaces of land that they have. And this can only be if we actually adopt some of these integrated approaches, for example, the integrated farm planning as a way to really address some of these challenges. So for the interest of time, I would actually stop from here and also allow my other discussants to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, William. It's now time for Iria. Iria, oh, fine.
Okay.
Dr. Singer, you can make a remark.
Yeah, thank you, our lead presenter. And thank you, colleagues. And thank you, Jesse, for turning 30 years. I'm Dr. Singer Stanley. For me, I'm from the government. Us as government, despite the fact that our issue of commercializing agriculture came as a contradiction, but we are trying our level best to make agriculture smart, to make agriculture attractive to the youth. And there is no way we can make it attractive when it's not commercialized. And in commercializing agriculture, we're having several issues. Here, there's a lot of land fragmentation. The majority of households have small pieces of land. When we go to the youth that are very vulnerable are landless. And there's no way they can survive on land unless they intensify the operations. Then, what do? We try our level best so that the community adopt intensive farming systems. Animals under zero grazing units, under pigsties, under poultry units. You find them localized in your area. Then we diversify. If you have a piece of land, then also add a piece where crops can be grown. And make sure that, as my colleague has said, they are well integrated. Animals are feeding crops, crops are feeding animals, and nothing is wasted. So with that, we move on with our integrations. Then there came PDM. And PDM is the solution to this. As we are all aware, right now we are conceptualizing Pillar 1, which is on agricultural production, processing, value addition, and marketing. So we're encouraging all these processes to embrace complete agricultural value chain development. And what hope do we give to people? Our first hope is we do mindset change. These people should appreciate that the challenges we have are immense. And with that, unless we change our mentality, the world will not favor us, and the change shall be adverse. Then we give affordable credit. As we are all aware, under Pillar 3 of PDM, each household shall get a minimum of 1 million as a parish revolving fund. Despite the fact that it is little money, but it should find that household at a certain stage of development or activity. It should not find the household flat. So that that small financing can kickstart, can boost that household to embrace farming as a business. Then we have changed the mindset, we have given the little financing or affordable credit, then we could get markets. Everything that has an end that is of monetary value attracts attention. So when all what we do has market, then all shall be well. Then we move on as a government, see how we can enforce compliance through production ordinances. We have extension staff that can offer disease control, pest control, and management. And we have all those aspects that can make agriculture a livelihood. So in all our interventions and interventions of private sector, we are trying our level best to make agriculture a livelihood, but not a destructive venture to the environment and the ecosystems. I agree with my colleague on agroecological concepts, which we have well trained our farmers. And the special consideration is on integration. And we have realized significant benefits with integration of crop and livestock farms. I'm having a challenge. The challenge was raised by my colleague, promoting plantation of crops that do not favor the nutritional value. So that one we need to think, even if we are zoned, this area has been zoned for tea, for coffee. Now I'm told even for sugarcanes that have not performed, that have left people in dire poverty in Busoga, they are now on hunger, they are now brought to Chenjojo. So there is a way we need to think of the potentials of these plantation crops and how they can foster the livelihoods of our people. Because of time, allow me to pass on the mic to the next discussant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley Usinge. So, Eria, you can take over.
Thank you so much, the main presenter and all the panelists. I think this morning our topic is trying to examine how the current policies on agriculture, on climate, and possible also environment speak to the reason why we're here. And I want to point out that the word sovereignty is very rare in our policies, the national policies and the frameworks. It's very rare, much as the recognizes that every citizen has a right to food security, but we don't seem to have so many of the other laws speak to food sovereignty. So that means, for me, my concern is how our laws don't speak to the actual needs of the community. And I want to address myself to issue of systems thinking. I think what is causing most of the challenges and possible also the nutritional issues is the fact that we seem not think in a systems way. We seem to be addressing components within the system without actually addressing the actual system and the way how it is functioning. My brother William spoke a lot about agroecology, and I know he's actually speaking to a system thinking where we want to have a system of production of food and also the supportive laws that actually speak to farmers having more diverse farms, having farms that are resilient and can withstand the shocks to climate change, but also respond to the dietary needs of their families and the communities. But for me, when I look at the policies that are there at the moment, majority of them actually, like Kiraba has put it, we have a lot of laws. But how do these laws speak to themselves? Are they coordinated? Actually, we find that there are so many laws that actually don't even speak to themselves. And that for me also causes a lot of challenges. So for me, from this meeting, our call of action should be towards the development of policies that actually speak to our cultures, that speak to the actual needs of community when we are designing such policies. It's unfortunate that I am not seeing a member of parliament here, but I know the local governments have a role to enact ordinances that speak to this kind of debate, laws that address aspects of food safety. I know for Poto City, under one of the KRC programs, we're trying to see how we can support Poto City come up with a food safety ordinance. And these are some of the policies that actually would speak to the actual food and nutrition requirements of our people. So currently there's a debate on GMOs, And you know that there are some international corporations that actually have an interest to monopolize our food systems and really put them into their hands and ensure that they actually control that system. And you very well know that he who controls food also controls the world. And these are some of the issues that we must stand against and also enact policies that actually stand against threats to our own food security. How do we ensure that our cultures are protected when we are talking about food systems? So what would such policies that actually operationalize GMOs? The other day, we're in Kenya attending a conference on agriculture. It is very clear that actually Kenya has banned the multiplication. My colleague here, Beatrice, is here, she's from Kenya. Kenya has banned actually, you cannot multiply and distribute the local seed. You must go through a system of certification and